better known as dead pig.
No, okay.
Agreed. 5 more minutes and then
Okay.
just start. Monday, October the 17th.
Recording in progress.
5:40. We are expecting one additional board member. Dave Ormiston is with us via Zoom. So to open the meeting, I'd like to ask for a motion to accept the minutes of September 19th, October 3rd, October 3rd's executive session, and October 10th's executive session. Then we can discuss them once I have a motion to accept them.
I'll make a motion to.
I'll second the motion.
Great. Any discussion on the September 19th executive session? How about the October 3rd regular meeting? I don't see any. The October 3rd executive session. And then one more, October 10th executive session. Right, all set? All set?
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor of adopting those minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, great. Going on to the warrants, the order's up through October the 17th today. I have nothing. Can I have a motion to accept the invoices up to 10/17?
I'll make a motion to accept the invoices up to 10/17.
And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Clive. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Are there any adjustments to the agenda? Dave, are you aware of any adjustments to the agenda?
Phil, we should just add the Merritt Campbell Fund discussion, or you can put that at the end.
Okay, and Mandy just pointed out that we are not going to be doing the FY23 budget update.
FY22 audit.
It's the
The
22
audit,
audit.
okay, yes, sorry. Martin can't go home, he's got to stay. We'll do the Merritt Campbell under new business.
Yeah, that'll be fine.
Okay, great. Are there any other adjustments? Moving on, are there any public comments? Is there anyone online that might have public comment?
There's no hands up. You got Bill Mason and James Dow.
Okay. Good. Okay, going on to old business. Rob Andrake has joined us this evening to represent the Conservation Commission. Rob is the chair, and he's going to give us an update on the response plan that was created in 2019 for the emerald ash borer. Rob, you have borer or borer?
Sorry?
Emerald ash borer responsible?
Borer.
Okay. Okay. Welcome, Rob.
Okay, thank you. So you probably all know the emerald ash borer is a destructive invasive beetle. It came to the US about 2002 in Michigan, and it has spread across pretty much every state east of the Mississippi and a lot of Canada as well. It showed up in Vermont in 2018, and we began working on our response plan as soon as we knew that it was here. In the areas that have been infested with the beetle, 99.7% of the ash trees die. And since it's estimated that 5% of the trees in Vermont are ashes, we're talking about tens of millions of trees that we'll lose over the next 10 to 20 years. So what we tried to do in our plan was to break it down into 3 phases. One before the ash borer arrived, 2 once it got here but it hadn't been widely killing trees yet, and then the 3rd phase was after it had been here for a while and all of the ash trees were dead. So we're still in that first phase. The borer has not been found in Hartland, although there are several new towns since the last time I was here before the select board, which was 2 years ago, I think. There's a map in the response plan that I circulated to you. It's on page 7, it's one of the first appendixes. It looks like this. And it shows where the borer has been found in Vermont. And what they do when they have a positive confirmed identification, they draw a little yellow circle 10 miles in radius around it, or 10 miles diameter, I guess. So each of these spots represents an observation of the beetle, 1 or more observations. It's been found in Hartford, it's been found in Pomfret, it's been found in Plainfield, New Hampshire. And so pretty much all of Hartland is in what the state would classify as a high-risk area. That means we will very likely see it soon, if it's not here already. And there's a good chance that it is here already and we just don't know it, because it takes a couple of years between the time a tree gets infested and the time it shows signs of disease, dieback of the canopy. There's a lot of other symptoms that you can see if you look at the tree. So we expect that it's a matter of time before it actually arrives. Our time has been spent in trying to get a handle on how big a problem we're going to have to deal with. And so we've done a lot of road surveys trying to count how many ash trees we have along our road right-of-ways. Initially, back in 2019, we did some quick estimates and we came up with about 45 ash trees per mile of our roads. And if we have 75 miles of road, that's about 3,500, 3,400 ash trees just in the highway right-of-ways, rights-of-way, sorry, if Mary hears that. So that's a lot of trees, but they're not uniformly distributed. And so then we started doing a little more careful surveying, because if we have a lot of ash trees on a road where there's not much traffic, that's not such a big deal. If we have a road where there's a lot of traffic but not many ash trees, that's not a big deal. But if we have the two together, a lot of ash trees on a road where there's a lot of traffic, then we're in for some potential trouble. And part of the trouble is because of the way ash trees behave once they're dead. We lost all of our elm trees to Dutch elm disease back many years ago. And you can drive around and see skeletons of elm trees that have been dead and standing for decades, and they're fine. But ash trees, once they die, the wood gets very brittle, the limbs tend to fall off, and if there's any kind of wind or heavy rain, the tree will fall, and when it falls, it'll shatter. So a lot of the companies that do tree removal won't let their people climb a dead ash tree because it's not safe. And in the wintertime, when the canopy, when the leaves are down, they won't let their staff climb an ash tree regardless, because they don't know what the condition of the tree is. So the trees can be a real problem once they're dead, in terms of just the safety of people being around them, people or cars. So the way we started surveying in 2020, before the pandemic shut us down, was we would drive along and we'd have a couple of commissioners, we'd have 3 or 4 people in the car. 2 people would be spotters, and they would just count how many trees they find. The driver would cut the road into 2/10 mile segments, and we would count how many ash trees there were in each 2/10 mile segment. And then we had Pete Fellows from Two Rivers Ottaquechee help us to put together this map, which is also in your plan. It's maybe the second last page. And what this shows is the density of ash trees along various roads. So we've now surveyed about 20 miles of road. And the color coding here gives you an idea of how thick the ash trees are on that road. So a very light yellow line, a slightly heavier yellowish line, an orangish line, and then sort of a rust-colored line. And the roads that you're seeing on this map, we've done the Brownsville Road all the way to the end. We've done County Road to the town line. We've done Rice Road. We've done Clay Hill Road and Hartland Selectboard Road and Hartland Hill Road. And then some odds and ends around. But the place that seems like it's going to be really a serious problem is if you go up the Hartland Selectboard Road, you can see it starts out sort of light yellow down toward the bottom, and then as you get up toward the top where it comes and joins Clay Hill Road, the trees get thicker and thicker. So there we're talking about anywhere from 16 to as high as 78 ash trees per 2/10 of a mile, right? And that also is a fairly busy traffic road. So the problem we're anticipating is 10 years from now, the ash borer has come and killed all of those ash trees. And now we have hundreds of ash trees lining our road, and a big windstorm comes along, and suddenly we've got 400, 500 ash trees laying in the roads. So we're trying to figure out what to do about that, and we hope you are too. There have been some places that have preemptively cut all of their ash trees because they know they're going to die anyway. And at this point, some of those trees have some lumber value. Once they're dead, they won't, because once the borer infects them, the trees lose their value except for firewood. I don't think it's an option for us to try and take out 3,500 trees, but I do think that we need to be seriously thinking about how are we going to deal with this once it starts. And one of the things that we could do is to try and bump up our budget for tree removal. And so I always try and come right before you guys are going to start talking about budget, because I think that this is an area where it's not a question of, well, we don't have the money right now, because you're never going to have the kind of money that you need to take out these trees. Once the trees are dead, because of the complications I talked about, the estimates for removing a tree are somewhere between $500 and $3,500 per tree. So the last time I checked, our tree removal budget at the present time is about $8,000 a year. If we're generous and we say that's 10 years, it'll take us about 350 years to get rid of all of these dead ash trees. So,
And Rob, those are the ash trees on the public right of way. They're not the ash
Exactly,
trees in my
yes.
backyard or backwoods.
yeah, there are many, many thousands of ash trees in people's wood lots and people's yards, and those are things that they're going to have to deal with. So one of the other things we've been trying to do is run some educational programming for landowners and people who have wood lots to talk to them about what they might think of doing for the border. But it is going to be a massive problem. Some towns in Vermont have started setting aside money because even if they don't need it right now, they expect that sometime in the future they will. And if they have a fund that they've started to build up now, then 10 years from now, they'll have some money to work with. So that's one of the options we might try to employ. Another, as I mentioned, if we could bump up the tree removal budget now and take care of some of the backlog of trees that are currently standing but are dead and threaten the roads, that's another way we would be better prepared than when ashes start to die off. It's not just the right-of-ways that we want to look at. We've surveyed all of the cemeteries in town and counted ash trees there and sent that information to the cemetery committee so that they could be planning, because tree removal is one of their issues as well. There's an ash tree close to the Martinsville Covered Bridge that if it fell, it would fall on the bridge and do some considerable damage. That one, I think it might be worth considering removing sooner rather than later. So there are some things that we can do to try and prepare ourselves. And so I will stop there, and if anybody has questions, I'm happy to try and address them.
Robin, the report, it is mentioned that Green Mountain Power has put an additional fee on their power company sort of recipients. Can you tell us a little bit about that or the scope of that or something?
So Green Mountain Power, as soon as they knew that the ash borer was in Vermont, they started, they were going to cut every ash tree that was within 10 feet of a power line in one of those high-risk areas. Right? So that was their plan. But they very quickly got overwhelmed because if you look, there's a map, a bunch of maps of New Hampshire. And if you look at the spread there, this is the spread from 2013 when the borer was first found in New Hampshire. It was down around the Concord area. And then if you look over time, there's been sort of a gradual progression out from that initial spot. And it gets bigger every year. That's the kind of spread you would anticipate if the borer was just moving on its own. It can fly maybe a mile or two, but not terribly far. But if you look at the Vermont map, we didn't have that. What we had was a pocket that started in this place that's kind of pink. That's where it was in 2018. And then after that, we just had pockets popping up everywhere. That's very most likely people transporting firewood that was already infested and then spreading it around that way. So if you were Green Mountain Power and you were trying to cut all of the ash trees within these high-risk areas, every time one of those pops up, you've got another 300 square miles of area that you have to try and deal with. So they did put a surcharge into our electric bills to try and help defray the cost, but it's they're not able to keep up with the spread that they're seeing. Eventually, I think that they will. Their hope is to go along all the power lines and remove the ash trees, healthy or not, from within, close to the power lines.
Right. And a few years ago, when you started talking about this, I was aware that some of the mid-Atlantic states were dealing with serious issues, and they were also attempting to identify trees on historically significant property and then using not cutting them and using the chemical approach.
Right.
Are there any sort of new kind of breaks there, or is that once you commit to that, you're committed?
Yeah, so there is a chemical treatment that you can do to an ash tree. It involves injecting chemicals into the tree systemically. Once you start, you have to keep doing it every year as long as the tree lives. You can't do it once the tree has been infested, so you have to do it ahead of time. And it's fairly expensive because it has to be done year after year. So we're talking, a few $100s per tree to keep a tree alive. But if you have a tree that's got some cultural or historic importance, it may be worth doing that. And there are towns that have done that for some of the trees in their town boundaries. I don't know of any ash tree in Hartland that is of significance that way. But again, private landowners might have trees that mean, they have some meaning for them that they would like to pursue. There are also some efforts on trying to come up with biological controls of the beetle. There are some parasitic wasps that tend to prey on emerald ash borer. And so there have been controlled studies trying to see if you could release enough wasps to keep the population in check. The problem with those wasps here in Vermont is that the winters are too harsh. And so the borer can withstand the winter, but the wasps can't. And so you would have to continually replenish the wasp supply.
It also sounds like a storyline for a Halloween film of some sort.
Yeah, well, yeah, and these things often have unintended consequences that can be serious.
Right. Right.
But so is losing tens of millions of ash trees.
And we are losing ash trees on my own woodlot to other
Yes.
formats.
Yeah, so there's something called ash yellows. It's another disease that ashes tend to get. And I've talked to some people who say, I don't care if ash borer comes now because all my ash trees are dead from ash yellows. And that's a problem. It's not as it's not as totally fatal to the trees. Well, it's fatal to the trees that it kills, but it doesn't kill every tree the way that the ash borer will. So ash yellows is also a problem, and it is killing a lot of trees in Hartland. People have, whenever I put something on the listserv about emerald ash borer, I get people saying, oh, I've had ash borer here for several years, and what they really have is ash yellows. Yeah. And so what I say to them is, go strip some of the bark off a dead tree, because the borer has a very characteristic gallery of tunnels that it makes under the bark that are S-shaped. And if you take the bark off a downed ash tree, you can easily tell whether it's emerald ash borer or ash yellows, because one will have the galleries and one won't. And so far, nobody has been able to find any evidence of ash borer here.
Any other questions for Rob? Any questions?
No, not really.
I was impressed with this report response plan the very first time I saw it, and rereading it. I just want to say thank you to you and the fellow commissioners. And certainly you're correct, it is budget time in the next few weeks. So either the idea of simply increasing the tree cutting fund or creating a reserve fund, I think is, should be discussed on that part. Will the commission be able to continue doing surveys?
Yeah, when COVID hit, we stopped because we didn't want to have 4 of us in a car. But now I think that people are getting comfortable enough. Everybody's been vaccinated and boosted, and we drive along with the windows down anyway. And so I think that we will try and start again. We'd like to continue to do the roads that we see as the busiest roads. Jennyville Road we haven't done yet, Brothers Road we haven't done yet. And so we'll work on those and gradually. Yeah, I don't know that we'll ever do every road in Hartland, but we'll try and get the ones that are the busiest of the.
And your campaign to help town citizens identify an ash tree was both fun as well as useful, educational.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, you know, the town forester was really eager to come and talk to people about the board. There are people in the state, in the program of urban forestry, something. There's some kind of, and they're always eager to come and talk to groups about the board.
Was this Ginger Nickerson?
Yeah, Ginger Nicholson and Elise Shadler is another one who have been really helpful. And there are a lot of online resources. There's one called Preparing Your Community for Emerald Ash Borer. It's a video that you can go to Vermont Invasives and watch. There are a bunch of them on identifying the borer, ways to slow the spread, and lots of other topics related.
Great. Okay. Dave, do you have any questions?
He's gone to sleep. Sorry, Dave.
No, I was muted. I'm good, thanks.
Okay, great. Rob, thank you very much.
Sure.
And look forward to working with you and the commission. Okay. Dave, do you want to do an intro to the budget update?
So, yeah, we're looking pretty good on the budget. Martin is in attendance. I will let Martin give you an update as to where we stand. And then I do have a few things from a macro perspective just to add. But Martin, why don't you go ahead and give an update?
Good evening. We'll start with the revenues. As you can see, we have a HS 122 late filing fee dues. We've had for this year, we're at $9,310 of funds through the end of September. The construction permit, we've put out 9 since July. So those are just a couple of new this year. So as you can see, the revenues are tracking right on track for the year to date.
Martin, just, I don't know if you want to take questions as you, between
Yeah.
funds. I noticed $6,000 for the election income.
Yes.
Did that cover the mailing of the ballots?
So the mailing of the ballots came from the state.
Okay.
We're hoping the state will have a grant like they did in 2020 for election, and we'll be able to get some grant money to offset, because we have three this year.
Okay. So is that, so
We haven't
6K
received
is the
anything yet.
budget for,
Yes.
okay,
Correct.
we're hoping for, okay,
For a grant, yes.
yeah, okay.
I moved the school budget out of the current taxes, so that's a more realistic figure for the year to date. The rec department is pretty much right on track for their income for the year, as we're at 25% for 3 months. And if you look just below the revenue for the rec department, there's grant revenue. That's a new section that David and I discussed about doing to kind of show where the grant money came in and get it out of up top with the other general fund revenue. It's still gonna be general fund revenue, but this way we can see what's coming in through the fiscal year. Excuse me, the highway budget, as you can see, the revenues are in for the year, except the grant revenue. We're waiting for a couple to come in. The paving grant hasn't come in yet, and the Jennyville Road project, we haven't received the grant money yet. Any questions on revenue?
I don't have any.
All right, so we'll go on to the expenses. Again, we're 25% through the year. As Dave said, we are holding strong on the budget. If we remove our prepays, the insurance is paid ahead, assessments, appropriations, some of the CPA money, summer camp money. If we back that out, we are at 25%. So we're holding our own on the budget at this point. As far as the general fund is going on at this point.
So I have a very picky thing.
That's okay.
Under the appropriations,
Yes.
could we, under the community nurse program,
Yes.
could we add, in parentheses, AIH, agent in Hartland,
Yes.
so that we connect the two?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I'll see if I can get that snuck in there.
Okay.
Absolutely. So the general fund, as I said, is right on track through the end of September.
Great.
The highway department, as you can see, is just under 25%. So they are tracking right on. The summer labor is up, but we're going to turn the winter hours here pretty quick, so the expenses will then go to the winter side of the budget. So that will equal out when we go back to summer for May and June. That'll be right back in line in budget.
And the paving and resurfacing, what do we expect the bill to be from?
I'm not sure how much that's going to be from Blacktop.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm not sure.
yeah, okay.
I'm not sure. So the highway department's at 20%, and they're holding the line also. Obviously, we have diesel fuel, which is going to be over budget by the time we get to the end, and the cost of materials. But
Yeah.
the budget as a whole at this point is staying strong.
Great.
Any questions? Clyde? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Martin.
Have a nice evening.
Looks good.
Bill, I
Yes,
just want to add a few things regarding the budget. So I'm not sure if the question was when it was going to come in or how much it was going to come in, but the paving expense, if you may recall, was going to be estimated about $275,000.
Okay.
About $75,000 over budget. I expect him to do the finish code the end of the week here. It usually takes them a good month to turn around that invoice. So we should see it probably around Thanksgiving, I would think, if not a little bit before.
Dave, does the 275 include the guardrails? Is Blacktop subcontracting that out to someone, but
No.
it's rolled into one price?
Separate on the guardrails.
Okay,
Yep.
okay.
So 275 was strictly the reclaim, the payment going down, and actually the ditching as well was part of that. Also, the election, you talked about that $6,000, that had more to do with the town meeting component to the election as far as sending out ballots, et cetera. Kind of was dependent upon whether we see, COVID kicks up again and we have to kind of go through that mailing process. whether the town ballots are gonna end up being a town expense or whether the state's gonna cover it type thing. So that's kind of what that was all about. I do want to point out two things. So I have spoken with the fireworks folks. I have gone ahead and booked the fireworks for the 4th of July. Just know that the asking price for a fireworks, set of fireworks now is up to 12,500. So we've got about 10,000 budgeted for Old Home Day. When I came on about 5 years ago, it was $5,000 for them to come out and do a show for fireworks. That was kind of low. We had paid about $5,000 for about 5-6 years prior, but that has slowly gone up. And then last year, we went from 7,500 to 10,000. It was a minimum 10,000 for us to get them here. That minimum is now up to 12,500. It's kind of within our wheelhouse. We're a little bit over, but that's something to keep in mind. There's a nice newspaper article on this back around the 4th of July, and something to keep an eye out going into the future, because that's just going to get more expensive. At some point, we may hit a breaking point here as to what we can afford for fireworks. Lastly, you can't really see it, but the August invoice came in from the Vermont State Police. It was less than $1,000, so it was pretty minimal on hours. Again, they did talk about that ticking up a little bit in October, but he was pretty honest and said that'll never get above 8 hours a week. I have spoken to James Dow. I do have James Dow working an additional minimum 10 hours a week. He was putting in about 15. I have green lighted him for upwards to another 10 a week. So you can see his budget just about double as far as what we pay for James. But certainly I see the offset there and what we're not going to be paying for Vermont State Police. If anybody's been driving around, James has been visible. He almost got me the other day over by Bischoff Lane. I was kind of on my way over to West Windsor, and boom, there he was. So just be on the lookout. That's all I got for budget stuff.
Okay. Good, thank you, Dave. Let's go right into new business and the Merritt Campbell request.
I have a quick question. How is that spelled so I can put it in our YouTube agenda? Merritt, like M-A-R-O.
M-E-R-R-I-T-T.
Got it. And then Campbell.
S-O-U-P.
Got it. Go ahead.
Okay. We've had a request. I think what we want to do is to abstractly discuss it so as to not to identify the requester, but I think we are all in agreement to go forward.
Yeah.
So Dave, can I simply introduce a motion? And I forgot the amount. I don't have that with me here now.
So we don't know an amount. What we're looking for is approval to move forward with the plumber to go out and take a look at and rectify the clog in the pipe at this point. And I don't expect that to be extravagant. If for some reason it's a major plumbing job, then I will need to come back to the board at that point.
Okay. So again, I don't know how to introduce a motion or request a motion if I'm not sure what the amount is. Up to, something like that?
If you want to do an up to, I'm fairly comfortable with a motion to move forward with a plumber to rectify a Merritt Campbell request for funding to help with their plumbing. If you want to put an amount, I guess you can put a safe amount, 1,500 or 2,000, but I don't expect it to be in that range.
Okay. I'm gonna try to make a motion.
I
I'd
can,
be happy to leave the amount out right now.
yeah, maybe just, I'll make a motion to allow or request have the town manager have a plumber come evaluate and rectify plumbing issue with funds from the Merritt Campbell Fund.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, we've got it, Dave. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Moving right on to the manager's update.
Yeah, I got a few things here. As I mentioned in the town manager's update, I was planning on having a short week last week, although I had to bypass the conference in Middlebury. Unfortunately, I understand that we should be getting a credit on that, but that's why I'm sitting here tonight instead of there. But anyway, it's still a brief town manager update. Biggest thing I have for you, I've been speaking, as you know, we've got the Three Corners intersection RFP that we're going to be looking to put out again in January. So that discussion has been kind of ongoing. I am going to need to amend our agreement with VHB for roughly about $19,000 to put us in a position to update our bid and bid specs to go out to bid for a second time. All of this is not for us to put that bid specs together the second time. I last did an amendment that I notified to the board back in, it was almost the exact same time in 2020. We had to amend the agreement with VHB to accompany essentially the fact that we got a grant for the bike ped. So we had to go back and kind of redo some things for the bike ped folks with the V-Trans. And at that time, we also had passed the utilities being a part of this project. So we had to accompany or encompass that work. Unfortunately, as we put the bid out in the spring, we went over that amendment by about $10,000 based upon the fact that we had more work to do with Green Mountain Power than expected. We had more work with the state of Vermont than expected. So part of this $19,000 amendment is for some of the overspending that we did in the spring. And then about half of that, or about $9,000, is to move forward. So this amendment will essentially put us from about 134,000 total for engineering to 150. $153. So I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention, be transparent, let you know that needs to happen. Part of this is to let you know that we are up to $150,000 in engineering on this project. So there's a fair amount at stake. And again, we will go out to bid in January and see where we land. I do expect to have a conversation at some point on an expected overage, but I'll say that for a different day. I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Is there any questions on that?
So you're not asking us to have an action on that 19,000 at this point? You're just having it as keeping us aware of that increased cost for engineering?
Basically letting you know that I'm going to move forward with that amendment unless you have any overriding concerns. There's really no way to move forward going to the RFP unless we move forward with that.
Right.
So,
I'm comfortable with that. I mean, we have to do the request for a proposal. Um, um, As hard as that's going to be to get that number, but we have to do that, so I'm comfortable going forward. Clyde, any thoughts?
Well, just gotta see where it goes,
Yeah,
you know? It's obviously gonna come in way over what we planned on,
right,
unless there's an age of miracles here.
yeah. Okay,
yeah, I would, I don't want to hammer this along too far, but, to Clyde's point, I think I would prepare for a 500,000 to 750,000 overage. We had a $500,000 overage in the spring. However, the person that was just one bid and they weren't qualified, weren't pre-qualified to begin with, so it's really, really hard to say. But again, there's a lot of projects that have been going over and it's just tough to say, the economy could crash and we could come in right on budget. You just don't know, but at the moment, the way inflation is going and with the national average up to 8.5 at this point, it's just tough to say.
yeah. Right. Okay, any more from your manager's report?
Yep, I got some more stuff here for you.
I thought you did.
ARPA funds, we've gone through the first quarter, so we have made, or we're in the process of making a transfer to essentially pay for the operating expense or payroll, including the employee benefits. We talked about this and took action on this a few meetings ago. Again, based upon the first quarter, that amount was over $300,000. So we're about a quarter of the way there. But just wanted to let you know that that did transpire. Clay Hill Road, we talked about a little bit. That is scheduled to occur this week, the finish coat, and they should be ditching as we speak, although I haven't been in the office enough to have my arms around that. Another thing, the Hartland Volunteer Fire Department, they are down 2 trucks. They are borrowing a truck from a Scutney Fire. We did need to put an agreement together with the town of Weathersfield and ourselves so that insurance would pick that up. But it is a 1995 Stellar vehicle. So if you see, as I think John put something out on the listserv, so if you see it around, it is working for us at the moment. Have put Sean's, I've advertised his position. That has been posted. I have had a couple responses. It hasn't been tremendous, but we'll see where that lands. Lastly, you all saw an email from Mill Street, or at least I did. I did respond to that. I just want to make a quick comment. I have heard, again, that that project is going to be picked up by infrastructure money through the state of Vermont. It is going to be a state of Vermont project. I have not heard anything directly from the state of Vermont. I do expect or hope to hear something in the spring. When I hear something, I will let everyone know. But my understanding is that this is something that they will have a tremendous amount of public outreach. So when they do decide to start to communicate, I expect public outreach on that. And I'm more than comfortable to wait for the state of Vermont and let us know where they're going with this project.
Great.
Last thing is Jennyville Road burial. You're going to have, that should be an agenda item for next week, next meeting, which is a couple of weeks away, but I will try and get that info out to you so you get it more than 3 or 4 days ahead of time.
Okay. And will there be information from the V-Trans about the V-Trans presentation on November 7th? Or is that just a presentation?
I don't, at the moment, that's just a presentation at the moment. He may be getting me some info. At the moment, I've just had a meeting with him. We have booked the 7th, and I expect him here with plenty of info for you.
Okay, great, thank you. Anything else as far as an update, Dave?
That's all I got.
Okay, thank you, an awful lot there. Dave, was there any correspondence that came in this week or last week?
Nope.
Okay. Then I think we are finished our regular meeting, and this is always the time that I get out of sequence. Do we have to do the
We have
motion?
to make the motion to enter executive session.
Okay. Does anyone have,
For the sake of just having it on video record, could you guys just say what the future agenda items, hypothetically, you're gonna do that after executive session, but could you just say that now on video for people because we leave for executive session?
say what?
So he's looking for the future agenda items on video.
Yeah, the future agenda items will be the Jennyville Road utility relocation, the Route 4 corridor study, and at a future date, the right-of-way and legal trail and Class 4 to be scheduled.
Cool.
Great.
Good.
Do you want to make the motion, Clyde, or would you like me to? Yeah, you gotta do it.
Why would we go to executive session per 1 BSA 313A3?
I'll second it.
I need to pass her.
All in favor, say aye.
That's Wi-Fi.
Aye.
Aye,
It's just
great.
capital.
No gas.
Oh, here it is.